All right, welcome in. Cube Show Podcast, college football podcast. It comes to you on Sundays. A lot to get to with camp in full swing, but have another interview for you today that I think you're going to enjoy. I will give you some updates around fall camp first, and then we'll talk to former Mississippi State, Florida head football coach Dan Mullen. Now with ESPN, had a chance to catch up with him at our seminar last week. It's always good talking football with him. I think you guys are going to enjoy some of the things that we discussed today. As you know, always brought to you by Wickles Pickles, wickedly delicious. They are fantastic. We love them. We snack on them. We've got them in our house. If you need Wickles, find them in your grocery store. If they don't have them, ask them why not. Go to Wickles.com. You can pick up some Wickles Pickles there. At Wickles Pickles on Instagram, I'm telling you guys, recipes, different ways to use them, and they are phenomenal. Everybody introduced to them says they absolutely love them. So still got to get some up to Dan. Need to get on that and ship those to him. A couple practice updates, a couple of things I wanted to hit first and foremost. I mentioned our seminar, and I just kind of wanted to throw this out there because president of the NCAA, Charlie Baker, came and sat in front of us, and this is basically all the announced teams, all the announced crew, and then producers, directors, all the people involved with college football at ESPN. He spent about 40 minutes in front of us, and I know what the thought process is when it comes to the NCAA. I know what their image is. I know what the mindset is for a lot of people, and probably Charlie Baker as well. But I just wanted to say, I'm not going to share a lot of the details or intimate things or anything like that. However, I had not had a chance to really be around him, talk to him, hear him speak. I was blown away. And not that I think the NCAA is ever going to be in great hands because of what it is and what needs to happen and what they're going to face through litigation moving forward. But I did want to say this, that I think Charlie Baker is incredible. I think that he is the right man for the job. I think if there are things that can be accomplished, he will accomplish those things. And I just feel like his vision, his thought process, his mindset, his understanding of the different levels of where things are, that not everything's the same, that everything can't continue to operate the same way because it's always been that way. He has a very forward-thinking brain when it comes to a lot of this and a good understanding. He has two sons that play D3 football. He was a D1 athlete. His wife was a D1 athlete. So he's been entrenched in it. He's lived it. He knows it. So just to understand that even though you go into it with a very negative perception of the NCAA and what it is, Charlie Baker, a guy who's trying to do the right. He went and met with all 97 conferences at all levels, wanted to individually sit down and talk to him. I think that in and of itself should show you that he's doing things in a little bit of a different way and has a different understanding of exactly how things are going to operate. All right. Some camp updates for you quickly before we get to Dan Mullen. Fun interview. Just a couple I want to throw out there. Arkansas, Taylon Green, quarterback. We have some question marks about him. The consistency throwing the football. I'm told that he's been special so far through camp, that he's looked fantastic, not just running the football, but also throwing the football, decision-making, leadership, all strengths of his. Landon Jackson, which is of no surprise. I mean, we thought Landon Jackson is going to have a big year. No surprise he's having a big camp, but a guy that obviously has been doing some things at a high level and is going to continue to do so. Xavier Sorey, Georgia transfer at linebacker, all the talent, all the ability, just mentally and emotionally, it's got to come together, got to be a good fit for the scheme. And I do think Travis Williams is trying to sort of make that happen, trying to meet in the middle a little bit, just so they can get his talent on the field. He's had a solid camp as well. Over at Kentucky and Lexington, they get Southern Miss week 1. Linebackers, again, no surprise here. Derek Jackson, who's been there, been playing, been productive, has stepped up that leadership role. Jamin Duman-Johnson, you've already seen Coach Stoops mention his name in a couple of press conferences. Back group sort of solidifying the defense. And I'm told Brad White's unit is approaching this like a major group of veterans. Like it has a real understanding of how to approach things, how to handle things, and that they have been solid on that side of the football. Good length on that side of the football as well. Something that I think people are going to look at as a strength for the Kentucky defense going into the season. And then also Vandergriff apparently handling things very well so far through fall camp there for the Wildcats. Wide receiver consistency has been a little bit better for the Wildcats. Remember, they've got all the talent. It's probably the most talented group that's ever been there. It's just consistently being able to hold on to the football, being able to do the little things that receivers have to do well to be considered to be great or elite. Some of the others that have come in, like Jamori Macklin from North Texas and Fred Ferry from UAB, apparently helping some of those younger, more talented players out. At LSU, D tackle, a major concern. Apparently, a little bit ahead of schedule, though. Bo Davis coaching the guys up, looking better than some people thought so far through fall camp. Running back, a little bit thin right now for LSU. However, with that offensive line and that group of tight ends, it shouldn't really matter who's being handed the football. And a quarterback and group of receivers are going to be able to move the ball as well. Sean Washington apparently having a good camp. The Georgia East Mississippi transfer. Also, Don McKinley, the freshman defensive tackle monster. Looks the part, acts the part, has been playing like the part. He's going to contribute to that LSU defense this fall. Over at Auburn, Peyton Thorne taking steps. Looks improved, looks more comfortable. Big part of that is probably because of Cam Coleman, who everything indicates to just continuing to be the real deal and continuing to be big time, along with Perry Thompson and now Malcolm Simmons also pushing for playing time. So this younger receiving core at Auburn looks like it's going to be heavy contributors in not just one area, but maybe 2-3 different guys. They're going to be on the field getting good reps. Right side of the offensive line apparently strong. Left side got a little ways to go. But I do know this through Auburn camp right now, the confidence being able to run the football is there with this group. They feel really good about what they're going to be able to accomplish on the ground this season. And finally at Florida, Montrell Johnson, tough injury, just a scope. You're hoping that he's back early. Don't know exactly what the situation is going to be like for the Miami game week 1. But Shamar James, TJ Searcy on defense, looking pretty good so far through camp. And Graham Mertz has been masterful from everything that I hear and that I'm told about what Florida's doing so far through fall camp. So little update on a couple different schools. I think over to Alabama, Jalen Milroe had a pretty good scrimmage, minus a turnover or two, but also being able to connect on some deep balls. And Ryan Williams looks like he's going to be that guy at wide receiver. Going to find a way to get him on the field because he's been dynamic for the Crimson Tide. Offensive line, at least the middle's looking pretty good. So I think that's something that you can build around. You just go find a couple of targets on the perimeter and offense should be good to go. So a couple of camp notes, things that we're hearing, some folks that we've talked to about what happened over the weekend through a couple of different scrimmages and whatnot. Also brought to you each and every week by Blue Delta Jeans. Don't ever forget Blue Delta Jeans, custom fit for you. They can do this digitally now as well. You just go to their website, bluedeltajeans.com. You get fit. They send you your jeans and they are magnificent. Custom fit for you, not too baggy, not too tight in certain places. And they're stretchy, flexible, breathable, and dress them up as well. You will not want another pair of jeans after you own a pair of Blue Deltas. Go to bluedeltajeans.com today. Make sure you tell them you heard about them right here on Cube Show. And you're going to love what you get from Blue Delta Jeans. All right, now let's get to Coach Dan Mullen, now with ESPN. Been around him and covered him for a long time. But cool to have a couple different discussions with him about some of this communication, preparing for 12-game playoff, how coaches are handling things in fall camp, some formational things. We get a little X's and O heavy at one point, but it's fun. You'll enjoy it. You'll like hearing from Dan Mullen. All right, happy to welcome in now coworker, somebody I used to cover an interview on the sidelines, but it was always gracious to me with his time and let me walk around and get in his way during spring games. But now coworker at ESPN, you'll see him doing studio, calling games this fall. Does a great job with it. Dan Mullen, feel like you were a natural to just step right in and be in the media talking about college football. It's been over a year now, over 2 years now. How are you as a member of the media, and how has the transition been for you?
You know what? I really enjoy it. What the benefit is, sit there and say, hey, come on, let's go talk some football. And that's one thing I'm comfortable with, at least when you're joining the media, to sit there and say, we're going to go do something about and just get comfortable talking about it. It's been a lot of fun. It's been an adjustment. I'll tell you, everybody at ESPN, I must not have upset that many people during my years as a coach because everyone's been pretty welcoming. I do get nervous sometimes. I'm like, you see people. I'm like, boy, I hope I didn't rip them coming, or they just had a bad day when I'm coming off the sidelines at halftime. But you know what? Everybody's been gracious to me. I work a lot with Matt Berry. He's been awesome to work with, kind of coaching me, helping me through things, and really learning the technical side of it. I think the one thing I really have learned and appreciated on the TV side of it is, listen, the talking ball or asking what's going on in football is easy. I can do that. Most people say, hey, that must be the easiest job in the world. You just go and talk football. as you know, there's a lot that goes on. I mean, whether it's, the timing, when to talk, when you're saying how to get a point across in 7 seconds. The nice thing about doing podcasts, radio, we can ramble on forever. But as you know on TV, there's someone while you're trying to make a point, there's someone in your ear saying you have 5 seconds, 4, 3, and you're like, ah.
It's different. Yep.
But everyone's been great to me, and I've really enjoyed doing it.
All right, so we were just at ESPN's college football seminar, and a couple of really cool things happened. But you had a chance to be sort of a member of the audience when other head coaches were talking to us about today's college football. I think the perception with a lot of fans is that NIL is the big problem. But when we get in that setting and we hear other coaches start talking about it, it's the portal that's the biggest problem. I've said for a long time, if we could figure out how to just manage the portal, we would at least mitigate or minimize a lot of the other issues. Is that the biggest problem in college football right now?
I think it's the combo of both. And I think here's what's going on with the coaches. And I think you saw this with the coaches, at least I did. A lot of times people want to make the coaches are the bad guys, or the coaches are the problem, or the coaches are complaining. You saw the coaches they sit there and they say, okay, what are the rules? What do you want us to do? And we're going to find a way to figure it out, right? A coach's job is to take problems and find solutions. And that's really all coaches do all day long. So, what's gone on with the portal, with NIL, with all of this is create more problems, if you will, for the coaches that they have to navigate and find solutions for. And I think the biggest one and the biggest issue as they brought it up, it's the combination of both. I don't think you'll find a coach that is anti-NIL. I don't think you'll find a coach that's anti-portal. I think what you want from the coaches and what we kind of heard from them is there's really very little definition. There's no, if you look and they say, okay, well, the pro players, they're getting paid. Well, their salary cap, they're under contract. There's a very small window they're allowed to negotiate their contract. They're under contract for multiple years. You know how to manage. And I think what's gone on, and I think the portal's the issue for the coaches, is they're saying, great, let's have a transfer portal window after the season, right? And then when it ends, I know January 15th what my roster is, if you will. Right, for this next year, or what I need to sign on the second signing day, and to fill out my roster for this season, and let's move forward. Let's go. Hey, the returning players have come in; they've worked out NIL deals. If you will, that's the signing period for next year's team. If you compare it to the offseason, there's free agency, then there's a draft, then they go.
Yep.
There's not, after mini camps and OTAs right before training camp starts, there's not another free agent market in the NFL. And I think that's what's gone on. If you look the equivalency in college right now, after spring ball, there's another free agency period. And kids are getting calls, or supposedly getting calls. I think they're worried about the tampering of saying, hey, you know what, I might need this. After spring ball, I realized I need this position. I'm going to try to go poach kids and say, we'll pay you this much money if you go into the portal and come play for us. And so now you're at another window where it's hard for the coaches to figure out what's my roster, and who am I playing with. And I think that's the unhealthy combination. I think if they can figure out the schools paying the players, and here's, your salary cap, if you will, or your share. And then here's when we're signing kids. Here's when the transfer portal's open. I just think those set dates in organization will not only help the coaches and the programs, but will really help the players. Because I think there's players probably getting, as we heard. We heard, and not from the coaches, we heard from the NCAA, that president of the NCAA, the kids are getting a lot of false information on what their market value is, and they're entering transfer portal, not getting that, and now they're kind of stuck with nothing. And it's I think we'd love to see a little bit cleaner solution to everything.
Coach Mullen, I don't know how much we're supposed to share or allowed to share.
Yeah, I know. We spilled it all right there.
but I just want to get your thoughts on this. I left Charlie Baker, president of the NCAA, spent about 40 minutes with us, which was, he was really gracious. I didn't really have, I guess, other than reading quotes of his and things that he's done since he's been in charge, a perception of him at all. I hadn't really seen him, heard much of him. I was blown away. I was beyond impressed with his vision, his attitude, his demeanor, the realistic approach that he's at least trying to bring. I'm just interested in kind of what was your takeaway, hearing him at least talk about what he's trying to do?
I was impressed because, listen, I'm the NCAA, and I might not be the biggest proponent of the NCAA and the issues they've caused and the problems they've caused and how they go about doing things. I think one of the things I think he was very open with is said, there's problems. We need to find solutions and fix them. And to me, I think that's a very fresh take instead of, hey, the coaches are the problems, the players are the problems, the rule. Yeah. It was, hey, there's some things that maybe should have been fixed a long time ago. And I think everybody can agree. The NCAA, I think, could have fixed a lot of things a long time ago.
There are a lot of things. I was impressed with how, like, kind of what you're saying, the self-responsibility of things that they've done in-house. And he admitted it. He's like, these prehistoric rules have got to go. It just doesn't work like this anymore.
Yeah. And he took ownership of it and said, we need to move to the future. And I think in the past, the NCAA's kind of buried their head in the sand a lot and said, we're not the problem. And, and I think, sports has evolved. I mean, college football has greatly evolved since when we were playing. You and I were playing. I mean, it's greatly evolved, way past that. When I started coaching, it's greatly evolved since the last 3 years, since I've been coaching. And the NCAA kind of, they stick with things that are like, hey, this is how we've always done it. Mm-hmm. Just because we've always done it this way doesn't make it the right way. Doesn't make it wrong, but we need to really look to the future. I think one thing that I like that he said, he's really reached out to a lot of people, and whether players, conferences, I really hope he's reached out to a lot of coaches, because I do think, as I said, I understand this as a coach. People look and they say, hey, well, the coaches are only going to worry about what's best for them. And one of the hardest things to get with coaches is get all the coaches on the same page, right? I mean, you hear that all the time. Hey, if the SEC thinks it's a good idea, the Big Ten wants to reject it, because if it's good for the SEC, it must be bad for the Big Ten, like every coach. So there must be trying to get a competitive edge. I don't think that's the case. I think the important part about telling coaches is the coaches, like I said, are always looking for solutions. If you say, hey, we're going to make this rule, we're going to open up transfer portal, right? The initial rule is, hey, that's great. All the paperwork's good. A kid that doesn't fit, or there's a coaching change, problem at home, he can go home. Hey, we're going to do NI. That sounds great. But you talk to the coaches and say, it's going to go way beyond that. It's going to be recruiting guys from smaller schools to bigger schools. This is what it's going to be. I remember when NIL came out in a meeting, they're saying, hey, it's only going to be market value for kids that deserve market value. I like, you couldn't have heard a coach, but that's the greatest thing for these kids ever. You can't find anybody to disagree with that. But I remember when it first came out, my first thing said, it's going to be 100% about recruiting. Yeah. And the NCAA, I was in a meeting in the College Football Oversight Committee, and they said, Coach, it's going to have nothing to do with recruiting. It's only going to be fair market value for kids that can make money off of their actual name, image, and likeness. It'll have nothing to do with recruiting. Well, and here you go. Now you've combined NIL with transfer portal. You have constant free agency in college football, which is what the coaches would have told you was going to happen. But they didn't want to hear, like, it was kind of, they don't want to listen to the coaches because they think, oh, you're just trying to better your program or, take advantage of something. And they really aren't. The coaches kind of know what the consequences of things are going to be that they're going to have to go deal with.
I've often said, Coach, that the NCAA makes these rules, and it's like you have to force yourself to go as far down the road to search for the underbelly of what that's going to be. Like the 4-game redshirt rule. Everybody thought, oh, this is amazing. Kids can play in bowl games. They can actually play a little bit. And then they save that red shirt. And then the first year that happened, I don't know if this happened to your crew. We're out doing games and we're meeting with coaches, and they're like, yeah, backup receiver, backup linebacker, our third receiver, and our second tight end, they might not play this week. And we're like, what do you mean they might not play? Well, they said they would practice, but they've already played 4 games, so they're saying they're not playing games anymore. I was like, they don't want to play? It even took me a little while to sort of figure it out. And they're like, yeah, they want their red shirt year. They're going to leave.
They're gonna save that year and transfer. Yeah, I think all of these. The issue is, unfortunately, like coaches, when you present them with things, they're going to look at all the problems it's going to cause, right? Not just the great thing, right? It's like, okay, hey, I drew up this great play. All right, what happens if the corner blitzes and we're hot? What if this, like your whole life, like, is everything, okay, let's look at all the things that can go wrong to make sure it's perfect that way for us. And I think that a lot when these rules come out, that's where the coaches go to. And I think that's where they get the answers. But I will say, President Baker, when he talked, I was impressed with his ownership.
Yes.
His desire to get out there, his desire to say, hey, everything's great. We have issues that we need to fix. And I think that was a fresh take and a good sign for the future of college athletics.
All right, so I want to stay with sort of along the same lines here, because I think you're the perfect person to ask this. And I might be making way too big a deal about this because I've mentioned it on a couple of shows. But speaking of something that everybody thinks is just going to be great, and I'm not saying it's not going to be good, but I think there are going to be some real problems that come with it, and it's going to be this communication in helmets for coaches. I'm very interested in, because you called plays, and so you would be calling plays now, and you're also a guy that liked to go fast at times, every now and then. I'm just interested in it because, Coach, I have a little bit of an advantage doing UFL and XFL games. I've heard some of this back and forth, and it is not always positive. And there are not always coaches that are happy with their players and players that are happy with their coaches. So I got a little raccoon in here. Hey, buddy, what's the matter?
Everybody is leaving.
Okay, you gonna go with them? I'm gonna come over there in just a minute, okay? Okay.
See, that right there is the best part of the media. You just saw everybody right there. If you want to know what the best part of media is, you still get to be a dad all the time, and that makes it fun. When you're in the office all the time coaching, you don't always get to have those fun things.
But I'm interested to hear your thoughts, because this thing, it's going to cut off at 13 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever it is. I think these coaches are going to be trying to cram way too much information into these kids. They're going to try to be playing PlayStation, run their own offense through the headset. And it's not going to work very well that way a lot of the time.
Well, I think there's going to be pluses and minuses, and everybody thinks, offenses are going to go so fast. Well, when you're going no huddle, you can talk to the quarterback, and then he can communicate to the O-line. Someone's still got to signal out to the receivers. So you're still going to have all the hand signals. You're still going to have the things. I don't know that it'll speed the game up a whole lot. I'll give you some. I think you might see some more huddling. I think you might see some different things because easier communication. Now, the benefit as you're talking to getting to the line, and I'm going to share this part with you that's going to be interesting. There's a lot of quarterbacks that want some information. I've talked to guys in the NFL about this, and you say, you can get up to the line of scrimmage, and the coach can be talking to you. Well, there's a lot that. I think really good teams, and you see good quarterbacks, they know the information they want from the coach, and that's it. They don't want any more. They don't want any more information after that.
Right.
And so I think the college guys are going to have to find this balance right now for how much information they can give. Now, the benefit I think it could give is I want to be careful not to information overload quarterbacks if I'm calling the plays. But in the world of transfer portal, right? Take Cam Moore going to Miami right now, and everybody's excited about watching him play. It's his first year at the U. He hasn't, I always felt really the quarterbacks, I have a great feeling as a coach going into year 3, they have a great grasp of the offense, like the complete control, right? I mean, I don't need to check plays for him. I can just just let them go. I mean, I usually even tell guys, once I feel they have that, they have full autonomy to call any play they want at any time at the line of scrimmage. They can change anything. They can call everything. The world's their oyster. You do whatever you want at that point.
Okay.
I don't know that guys sometimes in their first, second year have that grasp of the offense, that real why part of it. And so, but I think that communication comes in the transfer world that you're in now. You have a quarterback that might be a 1-year player. I think you got to be careful how much you give him, but he can get up to the line of scrimmage and you can give him a reminder. If that makes sense. Remember, hey, you're hot off the corner, like, hey, we're going to call this play action. You're hot on a safety blitz, right? You just a little reminder on some things, maybe some more advanced things, right? Sure. Hey, you can get up there and you can call a play. We're going to run an alert, a check play, right? And you say, hey, here's the check play. He might have that, but there might be a kill that you have in, like a 3-way check that you're not always going to call for the whole offense. You can click up and just, hey, reminder, if it's 0 blitz, let's kill to this, and I think you got to be careful because you don't want to play. I think if you try to do too much controlling, you're going to see some quarterbacks that almost become robotic. Yeah. And you'll see uncomfortableness in what's going on and a lack of, they're kind of waiting to hear. And then all of a sudden it gets cut off and they're kind of like, you see them looking at the sideline or something. I think there's going to be a fine line and adjustment for coaches to finding what it is. But I think they're going to find ways to help the quarterbacks with friendly reminders. Hey, you might call 2 run plays in the huddle, one's against 4 down linemen, one's against 3 down linemen, or one's against, 2 are away from safety rotation. And what you could do is remind the quarterbacks of those checks. Like, hey, let's go outside zone check. We're going to run outside zone check here. Hey, remember, it's away from safety rotation. So he calls the play, and as he's going up the line of scrimmage, it's away from safety. Hey, I'm going to stop talking now. I'm not going to tell him what to do. I'm just going to remind him of what those things are. Because I think that gives him more comfort on the field.
It's what Sark said at SEC Media Days. He's like, I learned my lessons in the NFL. Rich Gannon was 12 years older than I was when I started calling plays. First series, he came to the sideline. He goes, hey, buddy, I got it. Yeah, do the play and get out of there, okay? But he said the exact same thing you just did. He goes, I might tell him, hey, remind the back if that DN's coming outside, he needs a chip. He needs to stay a little bit and help. Or like you said, we get a corner crash here, throw this route, check to that. Just for those reminders, but as you know, some guys aren't going to do that, and quarterbacks are going to melt down, and they're going to be looking around wondering what the hell's going on. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Also, don't want you to forget about the Better Business Bureau of Central and South Alabama. Now, what you're going to get here is a way to draw more people to your business. Over 1,400 accredited businesses already in line with the Better Business Bureau of Central and South Alabama, hubbed right there in Birmingham, offices in Birmingham and Mobile. You're going to be able to get in touch with people that are going to drive you business, more foot traffic, more web traffic. If you need help designing a web page, Better Business Bureau of Alabama can help you with that. What about digital billboard space? Where to do it, when to do it, how to do it? They can help you with all of these questions. If you're looking for different ways to better your business or to drive more traffic to your business, the Better Business Bureau can help. Go to bbb.org. Plug in your zip code, Central South Alabama, and they're going to be able to help you in a multitude of ways to be able to drive traffic to your business and help you become a better business leader in your community. If you're out there looking for different ways to have more success, try the Better Business Bureau of Central and South Alabama. They want to help you drive web traffic, build a web page, know how to advertise, know where to advertise digitally and in traditional ways. Go to bbb.org and plug your zip code in today. How much would the iPads on the sideline have helped you out? Being able to go over there and watch coaches' copies of actually what was happening from a video perspective.
Well, for me, that would help me out. I'm a scheme guy a little bit. I love to design plays. I love that stuff. I think it would help out on seeing little things, right? And here comes the deal where it would help. The team's adjustment to you, right, when you put a game plan together, well, the defense is going to put a game plan for you. So you know what they're doing, but they're going to have a couple of curveballs they're going to throw at you. And now you can go in and you can really see the curveballs, or you can see they're giving you something. You know what I mean? Yep. They're giving you a throw that you're not really like. that's really kind of an off the radar throw. I try to make it simple for everybody. Look, a lot of times you'll get into an empty formation, right? And that receiver all the way out to the field by himself. You play, you go play a team. A lot of times they're going to cheat the corner way inside to kind of help everybody else and off. And they're kind of going to almost uncover that guy sometimes. Well, you can show that to the quarterback. Now, it can get you in trouble because the problem is if I tell them, hey, they're not really covering that guy out to the field, he's going to throw it to him the next time we're on the field. He's like, Coach, you told me that. Like, if you can show it to them on the iPad, hey, when they're playing this look, when they run a linebacker out, it's man to man. Don't worry about him. We've eliminated that guy. Yeah. But if they're playing zone and the corner's way off, that might give you a quick hitch you can go steal out there to keep them honest. I think things like that would be such a huge help. I see a huge benefit. I was always scratching my head. Well, you go to a high school game, and high school guys have the iPads on the sidelines watching it. Mm-hmm. And here we are in the Southeastern Conference, and no, definitely not doing that.
We're on the whiteboard over there still.
The NFL is still all still shots, and I'm kind of like, just watch the video. High school kids are doing it. Like if they can figure it out, we can figure it out.
I'm interested in something you just said there. I kind of wanted to get into you a little bit with anyway. You are the master of moving your pieces and winning with formations and different personnel groupings and people in different places. I think what's happened is, even though more people are doing it, what's happened is we are seeing the people who aren't doing it are really not able to be as successful. So that's like becoming a glaring weakness for some folks. Can you, from a very elementary perspective, just try to explain what it does for an offense when you either get a nub formation into the boundary, you get a 3-by-1 into the boundary, just how much that helps you either be able to steal yards or get the coverage you want? Or quite honestly, Coach, why other people screw that up defending it when you do those kind of things?
Well, one of the things, you're always trying to unlock the defense, right? So you sit there and you say, okay, hey, if I put our formation into the boundary, so, if you look at the balls to the short side of the field and we're going to put our receivers over that side, what's their adjustment to that? And then all of a sudden I motion a guy back to more of a balanced regular formation. There's a lot of defenses, they'll have checks for those things. And right. So, hey, every time we go to the formation into the boundary and we motion to the field, if the nickel stays still, they're going to play cover 3. Well, that's a great. So what we want to do, if we want to play run a pass play that's really good against cover 3, we're going to dictate the defense. We're going to get them into this, and we're going to motion the guy across. Now, if he runs with them, it's always cover 2. Well, that's just a good little tidbit maybe for the quarterback.
Yeah.
Or he runs over, and we know it's going to be cover 2. We might alert it to our cover 2 play. Let's call a cover 3 alert cover 2 play. We'll change it that way. The other way, in making it really elementary, is let's say you have 2 great wide receivers. And we'd like to throw one of those 2 guys the ball. Maybe one of them is a tight end. I don't know. However it is, we have our 2 best players. Well, in certain plays, we're going to have, this is the primary, this is read 1, or, you hear about progression. Hey, he's going from his first read to his second read. Well, on a given play, let's put our best player at the first read and our second best player at the second read. Chances are they're going to get the ball in their hands. And so I think a lot of people, if you do that as you're moving things around, you're trying to dictate matchups defensively, right? There's a lot of times I say, I could put 3 receivers to one side, especially if I put it in in a certain formation. They have to go defend that. And I'm going to put one other guy on the other side. Well, if I get a one-on-one matchup, I want my best player in that one spot over there.
Yeah.
And so the only way they're going to stop him is by covering him with 2 people. Well, if they're going to cover him with 2 people, everybody else now has got their good matchups. Yep. And we're going to take advantage somewhere else. So I think when you're moving the pieces around, you are trying to either dictate through motion and formation what the defense is going to do to get them to play the defense you want, or identify what they're doing defensively for the quarterback, or you're moving the pieces around, and it happens both, to better the chances of your good players getting the ball, or you're trying to create a great one-on-one matchup for one of your players. And if they're going to take that away, that's good. But because they're taking that away, they need two players to take that away. And now I've balanced numbers for everybody else and created a mathematical advantage with the rest of everybody else on the team for myself.
So one defense that you had consistent success doing those kind of things with, and I go to the SEC championship game, Kyle Pitts comes to mind. The next year, the game in Gainesville, the defense was misaligned often. It's me saying that, not you saying that. And you guys were able to get some yards and get some advantages that way. So a lot of Alabama fans are curious how different the defense is going to be. You have faced Kane Womack's defense. You know what that defense is compared to what they had before. Just structurally, schematically, how do you view the new defensive scheme at Alabama compared to what they had before?
Well, I'll start with this one. We did have, unfortunately, Nick is one of the few people, I'm sure maybe we played somebody once or twice, that even through all those years, even though I had success, we still weren't able to beat him. So in the end, even though we had a lot of success and we spent a lot of time figuring out and trying to unlock all the little secrets and keys and create the matchups and score some points, we got awful close a bunch of times and still never were able to get it done. So, but as you're saying, I think this. I think the one Kane Womack, he's really good defensive coach. Learned a lot from his dad. Really, really good defensive coach. Really good scheme, causes you lots of problems. Now it's a different scheme than Nick's defense, and and Coach Saban's defense. So the problem, listen, the scheme works. If there was a perfect scheme, everyone would run the same defense over and over and over again. You'd only everybody just run one defense. So the scheme is you believe in it, you have the answers, you put your personnel, right? You're going to run what you believe in and what you know. My concern for them, and having seen this through the years and in many years in coaching, well, anybody that went to Alabama where he believes, in the Bible, they believe on their defense. Defense is the Bible. Like we are believers. And so they're going to sit there and say, well, the scheme, Coach Saban's scheme is the best scheme you can run. There's other great ones, but it's the best. And Kane Womack's going to come in and say, no, we're going to do things differently. And those players are going to look and say, do you see all the banners? Do you see all the championship? Did you walk through all the trophies? Those were running a different scheme. So there's going to be kind of that Jedi mind trick for the players and the meld. Now, the benefit I think that Coach Womack has is he has one of the greatest defensive coaches of all times sitting down the hall.
Yeah.
And, listen, when I was at Florida, Coach Spurrier had an office in there. Mm-hmm. And trust me, anytime if he walked into a meeting, we didn't sit and say, hey, we have all the answers. We're good. We don't need to hear what you have to say. We all stopped. Everyone sat down, and he'd come in and say, hey, I've been thinking about some things, and what about this? And everybody has their notebook out, taking every note of everything he has to say. So I think it's going to be interesting with the evolution for Coach Womack of his defense, what he knows, what he's comfortable with, how he knows it, working with Coach Saban and how to meld it in to not have the team look and say, why are we changing things that we don't need to change a lot? And that's going to be the interesting part more than the actual scheme itself. I don't know that it's going to be, hey, we're throwing out the old scheme and only running the new scheme. I think there's going to be a little combination of both.
Okay. Alabama will be one of those teams that essentially Kalen DeBoer is going to be preparing to go to a 12-team playoff because they're a team that people think is going to be in. They have the players to be able to do it. If you were sitting here 20-something days away from the season, whatever we are, just getting into pads in fall camp, and you and your staff thought, hey, we got a good shot to be in this playoff. You didn't have to worry about that in previous years. what are you doing different now to prepare for a season, knowing that you may have a couple extra games in the postseason as opposed to maybe what you would have been doing before?
I don't know if you're doing a whole lot different. Because your goal is this. Let's go win a conference championship. Because you don't want to leave it up to a vote, right? I mean, and you look last year, Florida State, they did everything they possibly could do, still didn't get in. So I think your focus is let's worry about what we can control. What we can control right now is going to win a conference championship, right? Get to the conference championship game, then let's try to go win it. I think what's going to be really interesting for everybody is the back end of the season. Once you kind of, hey, we can't play for a conference championship, and if you're sitting there, if you were a team that was, let's say you're 9-2 or 8-3 going into that last game of the season, you're kind of, if you've been eliminated from your championship game, you're ranked number 9, you're not going to the playoff. Now, chances are your last game's a rivalry game. It means a lot, but you're not jockeying for bowl position because there's guys being like, well, I'm opting out. I'm not even going to play. I'm not going to do this. I think it makes those games much more meaningful down the stretch. And I think that's going to be the approach is there's going to be a lot more meaningful games as the season goes on for the coaches. But I don't think your vision or your focus of how you're preparing, how you're about to go through the season changes. I think the biggest change is going to come once postseason hits. Because postseason, now has been you play in a championship game. And if we're in the 14 playoff, you're at about a month preparing. What is it, like a month, 5 weeks? It could be about a month to prepare for that game. And then there's a quick turnaround for the national title where you probably would, you're preparing for the semifinal, but early on, you're going to have everything broken down on the other two teams and that you would play in the championship game for the quick turnaround. You're ready to go. I think the postseason routine is going to change because a lot of times, those first couple weeks getting ready, and whether it was bowl or whether it was a college football playoff or a national championship game, you're getting guys healthy. You're working in some young guys' development. You're kind of balancing things. Now you're kind of into a mode immediately of let's get into the playoff mode because we could have, I think the being one of those 4 teams to get the first round bye is a big deal right now. Huge. You're looking now saying, okay, we get that first round bye. We got to win 2 games to get to the championship. If you don't, you got to win 3 to get to the championship. I'd say the battle is still to get that game and get the 2 games, not the 3 games to get there.
Absolutely. I want to get your thoughts because you've been in. People see the helmets behind you, Bowling Green, Utah, and then obviously people know your time in the SEC. For Texas, Oklahoma coming in, for Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA coming into the Big Ten. I'm not one of these guys that sits here and says that it's this insurmountable mountain of bludgery that they're just not going to be able to handle. But that grind is going to be different. And like I do, it's not just the line of scrimmage. It's also the pressure, the noise, hearing from other people, other fans hating on you, the stadiums you're going to play in, the environments are going to be different on a more consistent basis. It's a lot of mental wear and tear and emotional wear and tear like it is physical wear and tear. How different will that be for those teams that are coming into the Big Ten and the SEC this year?
Well, I think you look at those teams, Texas and Oklahoma, start with them. I mean, so much success through the years. And, if you look in the Big 12, and there's a lot of really good teams in the Big 12. And let's be honest, look back. I mean, it's not like both of them just won every Big 12 game over the last 6 years and nobody could compete with them. But if you look at the talent on the roster week in and week out, they generally had the most talented rosters in that league over the last several years. And they're going to come in now to an SEC league where I think they're going to look, and that talent it's not just the one game. It's the week in, week out. So if you're at Texas, where you always had in Oklahoma, when they were the team that had the target on their back, right? So their deal was we had to show up because everybody wants to go beat us, right? And when they were in the Big 12. And now they're coming into the SEC. I've always believed this. It's not the one game. Can they play with anybody in the SEC? Absolutely. But it was never about the one game. Everybody in the country, there's not a current Big 12 team that can't play with anybody in the SEC. I mean, Utah can go play with anybody in the SEC.
Yeah.
But it's week 2, and then it's week 3, and it's when, hey, on consecutive weeks, hey, we just played we had a year at Mississippi State in 2014. We played the number 6 ranked team in the country. The next week we played the number 4 ranked team in the country. And the following week we played the number 2 ranked team in the country. We won all 3 and they let us be number 1. And that was a fantastic deal, right? But it's like I would say, it's not about the one game. Fortunately we had a bye in there to catch our breath. But it's the multiple week after week after week after week and the grind of the talent you have to play. And as you go look, I think winning a championship, one, you got to have a great team. You have to have talent. You need to have some depth, right? You need to be well-coached, disciplined team with the right mindset and attitude. It also helps if the schedule works out pretty well for you and you stay healthy. And, I think that is such a big part of it because as you see, it's those teams, and even with Oregon and Washington, USC, UCLA, who have again sometimes more talented teams in their league. Well, they're going to show up week in, week out now against Ohio State, Michigan. There's more teams with equal talent that they're going to go face. I mean, it's not it's the multiple times you have to do that, and consecutive weeks you have to do that, and. There's a lot of times I always remember you go back to a 2006 national championship team at the Florida Gators. And we had to play Ohio State, and people were saying, boy, they're unbeatable. But they rolled through everybody in the Big Ten. The Big Ten was a little down that year. We had a tough stretch of schedule. And then all of a sudden in November, we had guys not practice, just in games. We had guys we were limping through the back half of that season. Well, all of a sudden, we had 6 weeks before the national title, and we were 100% healthy going into that game.
Yeah.
And we rolled. I remember watching Ohio State, and they rolled most people. So they were healthy throughout the whole season. And so it's like, boy, they're going to outmatch them. I think what teams are going to see, and that's why I say that, is we were so banged up. We got in some tight games. Fortunately, we're still able to win. I think these teams are going to have to see of that getting beat up week in and week out and learning that you're going to have to find a way to play without practicing. We're going to find the depth. We're going to have to find the guys that can get through playing week after week after week after week, superior talent, great talent, and finding ways to win.
All right, I'm going to leave you with this one. McElroy and I have talked about this a bunch. We feel like that there's a part of offense that's kind of coming full circle for a couple of reasons. One, the usage of tight ends and multiple tight ends is everywhere now. It's not like a little bit of a trend. Everybody's doing it. I think the offensive lines in the SEC collectively are ahead of the defensive lines for the first time since I don't even know when. Everybody usually has 2, 3, 4 guys that can just take over a game on defense. I don't see all those guys right now. And I think we got some pretty good offensive lines across the board in the league. We heard Sam Pittman say they're going to run I formation at Arkansas.
Yeah.
A couple other teams are going to focus on running the football and maybe even from a little bit more of a traditional sense. Is that part coming full circle? And add to it, do you see like an offensive trend that's either coming back or a place that you think we're going to go next with sort of offensive football at the college level?
Yeah, football is cyclical, right? I mean, we started running, all this single wing quarterback run stuff. Well, they were doing that in the 20s. Not the 2020s, the 1920s. We actually, at one point, tried to get Notre Dame shift film. You know what I mean? Like we were trying to find that from, let's see is there something we can pull from that. So, if you go back to the early 2000s, the spread offense, Urban Meyer and I were kind of inventing this spread offense that we ran. Rich Rod had one, that he was kind of doing. There was Kevin Wilson's version. There were some different versions of it that were going out there. But you're in the shotgun spread and you're doing zone reads and, there's, option motions off of it and all this shotgun play. That was new. And that was hard for defenses to adjust to. And, because kids are saying, hey, all right, this defensive end, hey, I'm used to rushing the passer or taking on an ISO lead block. Well, now we want you to shuffle and, you're going to shuffle down the line and read to see who has the ball, the running back or the quarterback out of the shotgun. That was foreign, and it really slowed players down. Well, I think in today's world, in high school football, they've seen it. You know, the hardest thing to teach a quarterback is how to take a snap under center. Quarterbacks, I mean, most kids coming to college don't know how to take an under center snap. So you got to teach them how to do that. Well, I think
we went to one of your old stomping ground early last year, and we had Mississippi State week 2. And I asked Will Rogers, when was the last time you took a snap under center? He said he did it one time in high school. Yeah. And this is really weird. It was on the goal line coming out for whatever reason. He's like, we fumbled it. Thankfully, got it in our own territory. He said, but that's it. That's the only time I've ever done it in high school or in college.
It's crazy. And so, you know what becomes cyclical is you sit there and say, okay, you know, if you go into a defensive meeting room, you know, back in the day, they would start day one, they draw up the I formation, and here's how our defense fits. And then if they adjust the twins, they put two receivers over. And now it's all nickel is the base. Nickel's the start. So I think the cyclical part is you'll see people, hey, let's get into some tighter formations. Let's get back under center. Kids on defense aren't used to seeing that. That's now an anomaly. Under center huddling, an anomaly. Under center quarterbacks, an anomaly. Multiple tight ends or bunch formations, I formation, that's an anomaly. That's something they have not seen and are not used to. So, heck, let's get going with that. I mean, if I went back coaching, I don't know. I might get back. I might get into some under center. I'd be like under center. I'm going to go recruit you're going to 105 scholarships right now. I'm going to throw a couple. I'm going to go find a couple fullbacks. We'll get in the I formation and go pound away at some people.
I asked a couple linebacker coaches when I heard that, and one of them said, I'm going to be honest with you, Cole, I've never coached my guys how to fit the run against the I formation. Never. Our guys have never seen it. He's like, so I guess we got to go try to a scout team that can show it now. Because remember, it used to be, you know, the mobile quarterbacks. Do we have a guy that can mimic that now? Do we even have a fullback and a quarterback, like you said, that can take a snap under center for our scout team that can even show it? And
it's crazy.
It'll be weird. So it's going to be fun to watch. I hope we get more of that. But thanks for the time, Coach. It was awesome stuff. I love talking football with you. You're one of the best football minds that I have ever been around. And look forward to catching up with you again this fall.
Can't wait. Enjoy it. Enjoy the games. I'll be watching all your work from that studio all day, every Saturday.
Absolutely. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.